Welcome to the Path Podcast, where we will travel the lives of some bold women, from dreams to detours to destiny. She did not choose this path chose her. This is the Path Podcast. Hey, welcome back, Path listeners, to the Path Podcast, Survivor Guide with what? Seeing everyone walking into their next second, minute, day, being intentional about their healing from some of the traumas and obstacles, disappointments in your past that's resurfaced inwardly or outwardly. That is not healthy for you or those who love you. It's time to deal with it, ladies. And I'm your sister again, your motivator, your confidence builder. I'm that one who does believe that purpose is bigger than obstacles. And as we continue in the year of being healed and free, we are going to speak to, like I've said before in our first podcast, many professionals that are out there that's doing the work, that's passionate about what they're doing. And those are the people I wanted to share with you on the Path Podcast, because I am passionate to see everyone healed and free. And if you think, if you can't believe that this world can't be healed and free, I'm going to believe it for you, because I believe in the one who created all of us. So I'm believing everyone to be healed and free from past traumas, like I've said. Today is no exception. In the chair today, I have a very special guest. Her name is Chanel Toson. Who is Chanel? I'm going to welcome her in to let her tell us a little bit about herself before I just read all of her many accomplishments that I've been viewing and looking at lately. Chanel, welcome to the Path Podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing well. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell me, Chanel, tell us a little bit of, tell us about you and what you have going on in your profession, please.
All right, sure. I am a licensed professional counselor in the state of Georgia, and I have been counseling professionally for the past 8 years. Counseling is a passion of mine. I was that little girl who was in the guidance counselor's office as a child, helping and trying to talk to kids, listening to friends' problems, and so it's been a lifelong goal for me to be able to be in this type of helping profession. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
something I truly enjoy doing, from children to adults, couples, families. It's something that I'm very passionate about, as well as providing education, not just counseling, but
Mm-hmm.
education on mental health.
Wow. And it started ever since school. You were in
Yes.
school. I love that. And it's because, let me tell you, before I'm going to go into a few other things, tell us the name of your company again, your profession, your practice.
I am the owner of Creative Touch Counseling Center, and
Creative
we are
Touch.
located in Conyers, Georgia.
Okay. Creative Touch Counseling Center. And everyone, of course, we will put all of this information in our show notes. So I love, you already kind of told me, because when I start the Path Podcast, I love to always ask people about the younger person who had their hopes and dreams. But before I go back into all of that, I want to tell everyone also what Chanel and I will be speaking about, because as she's already alluded to that she is a licensed professional counselor. So we will be talking today about anxiety, which we know is a form of mental illness. Everyone out there, as I've learned, that it goes into that category. A lot of things I've found goes into, can cause anxiety. And we're going to be talking about that, the coping skills, and to help us balance our lives better. For some of us who may be able to manage anxiety, and maybe some of us who may need some of that extra help. And we can find out how Chanel and her practice can probably help you on that next level. We will also talk about a lot of the programs that she is working with her clients, like goal setting, sometimes overthinking and overcommitting, and 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 a lot of other different things that I may not think of, that Chanel knows that we need to hear today, and maybe what her practice can offer someone out there. Now, Chanel, let me go back into, it's a lot she still didn't say about herself. And as I look back at your practice, it says that you also is a professional, you supervise other professionals that are out there, if they're in your practice as well?
Absolutely, yes. I'm a
Mhm,
certified professional counselor supervisor as well. And so
mhm,
I do a lot of training as it relates to the profession and
mhm,
teaching back. Um, and that's something that I really enjoy doing, training new recruits, new interns, people who are
mhm.
junior level therapists, and giving them that support and supervision that they need for doing well in the profession.
Wonderful, wonderful. And of course, it also said that you, as you said, you deal with adults, children, and families, and you've also you work in do grief counseling.
Yes, and this is something that really was birthed out of the pandemic because there was just so much loss due to the pandemic, but
Yes,
also we were experiencing losses that had absolutely nothing to do with the pandemic. And
exactly.
so a lot of people forget that life still went on,
One.
during that time, and we weren't just experiencing loss by COVID. And so being able to manage the grief and the excessive grief,
Yes.
acute grief that was going on that time is why
Mhm.
I made it a point to get certified in grief counseling as well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I saw something else, and we'll get more into that later, so we can dig into some of our topics. But something you're working towards, which is being a registered play therapist, and I'm just curious about what that is about. And so what is that? If you might let me
Yes.
ask that now.
So play therapy, being that I work with kids and I've worked with
Hmm.
kids for such a long time, play is the language of children. And,
Yeah.
you think about being able to counsel an adult, a lot of the things that you're able to do with adults, you cannot, it doesn't translate the same for kids. But
Yes.
when you make yourself childlike and you're
Hmm.
able to get on the level of a child and join with them in what is most known to them, which is play.
Hmm.
You're able to really um, tackle some of the challenges that they're going through just in that type of environment. And so, play therapy is a form of therapy that teaches us how to play through challenges, anxiety, past trauma, so that kids are able to express themselves in the language that they know best.
Wonderful. That's a wonderful thing because I was listening to I need to get into this. It was an interview where they said some children from 0 to 5, the life they're in, I may not say it right, it forms, it's like their future or how they see things if a home is in confusion or, this, I don't like the word dysfunctional, but, out of, you know, with chaos in the home, that it kind of, a child grows in, and that's what they know, and it kind of develops in them between 0 to 5 years old. And is that something that is true, or is it changed as you know of, or have heard anything like that?
That's absolutely true. That is the time span where the majority of brain development takes place is zero
That's
to
it.
five. And
zero to
so
5
those years are so essential. And it does
Mm-hmm.
not mean that after 0 to 5 that changes can occur because our
Exactly.
brain is malleable. We can teach it
Mm-hmm.
new things. We can form new ideas and new thoughts and retrain some things that might have been
Mm-hmm.
um, formulated early on, but it is essential that at 0 to 5 years that we're instilling, those positive, healthy experiences into our kids
Mm-hmm.
because it does shape the days that are ahead for sure.
Exactly. That makes sense. And she said it better than I did, of course, everyone. And that's the reason why I know even today, with since I love working with women,
Hmm.
and that is where I think I'm called to more. I would love to see all of us healed and free because we're having the children. We with our husbands and significant others, of course. And I know it's raising healthy kids when we're healthy ourselves. And everyone out there, we can't say there's not one perfect person out there. We can't don't think just because if you feel like you need to talk to someone or need that extra help, you're bad or you're um, imperfect in some ways, because again, none of us, we're perfect. So everyone probably could use a little therapy here and there. someone, we all talk to someone, even if it's not a licensed professional, but are you speaking to someone at least who's helping to improve your growth and coming through certain things if you're coming through some things that can be very traumatic. So that's a wonderful I love the registered excuse me, play therapist. So let's jump in today about this anxiety. Anxiety is such a big word we hear all the time. I know, like you said, you'll tell us more how it fits into mental illnesses, but anxiety is a big deal. Tell us, what is anxiety, and about anxiety.
Yes, absolutely. And anxiety is something that we've all heard about, um, and when you think about anxiety, you're thinking about that overall feeling of worry, nervousness, being uneasy, being overly concerned or overly thinking about something, something that is uncertain for you or imminently that's going to occur. And so,
Mhm,
anxiety, when it shows up and it's more intense and excessive and persistent, worry, that is
mhm,
when you are able to know that it's not just stress, because we all experience stress, but if it is in a space where it's now more intensive, excessive, persistent worry and fear, and I can't
mhm.
manage it, it's now debilitating.
Mhm.
That is when you cross that threshold into anxiety being more of an anxiety disorder. And there's multiple
Okay.
different types of anxiety disorder. But it's just important to know
Mhm.
that we all have anxiety. We all deal with stress. We all have things that
Mhm.
make us worry and make us concerned. Um, what is the indicator that this could possibly be an anxiety disorder is when it is intense, excessive, persistent, and it is
Yes.
debilitating, meaning it impacts my ability to work. It impacts my ability to be able to function and complete my
Mhm.
typical day-to-day tasks, or it's so intense that I can't get out of bed, or I can't go into public places, or I
Exactly.
can't complete the task. I feel too overwhelmed. That is
Mhm.
it crosses into anxiety disorder.
That makes sense, and that you broke it down so easy for all of us, because sometimes I think we've all thought that anxiety was this big gigantic thing on the surface that we see, like uh the death of someone, and you're feeling anxiety about, I'll just say, from a spouse losing maybe another spouse,
Mhm.
and all the things that can come up in us after something like that happens, or a car crash, that those bigger things. But like you said, something it can be just over, not just, but over stressing about the day-to-day stuff in life with this COVID, the last 2 years, the way we've been living, and trying to wonder if things are going to get better, or my family is going to get sick. And because I must admit, for the first time, I think it was in 2020, the middle of 2020, I told a friend who, she said she experienced anxiety, high levels of anxiety. And I told her I've never really felt I dealt with it, but 2020 kind of, you know, made me shake a little bit and
Yes.
say, wow,
Yeah.
what is going on? And I told her, for the first time, I felt like, this is probably, and maybe I've experienced it before and never really thought about it, because I move on sometimes. It just made me sit here and think I'm overthinking this too much, and I'm thinking about this too much, like you said. And I think it made me sit and think, I think that was anxiety,
Mm.
for me, and so I can understand and see. And I told her, I said, I don't want to minimize what she has dealt with, of course, and the levels that some people go through with it. But it was a lot for me, for that, just the understanding. I had to pull back in certain things, the news, I had to get off of the TV a little bit, go back to the positive things that feeds me. And I enjoy more positive things in my life. And so I'm always encouraging myself a lot of times. And that's something I've always been strong in that regard. But like you said, sometimes we all need to just sit back and say, okay, let me readjust and reset here, because this can go to the next level if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So that's a great way of saying it. So tell me, anxiety and depression, they're two different things, of course. But tell me, are they similar still? Are they just still, they can be two different things?
Great question. They are. They
Uh-huh.
do have similar features, but they are two different
Uh-huh.
disorders for sure. And
Okay.
the same thing applies in terms of depression. You think about sadness
Mhm.
um, you know, and some of those symptoms from anxiety also mirror depression, like feeling fatigued because of the constant worrying. Depression just shows up in a different way, but fatigue is a part of
Mhm.
that. A sense of not wanting to do things that used to be excitable and fun for you, things that you used to enjoy,
Mhm.
no longer wanting to engage in those type of things. Um,
Mhm.
Isolate and say, I used to be so social, but now I prefer just to kind of be, to myself. I don't really want to be in social settings or be with the people that I used to always love being with.
Yeah.
That's something that's common for depression as well. But, I always say when it becomes intense, persistent, and excessive, all consuming, that's when you're noticing that this is not just sadness.
Yes.
This isn't just I'm going through a moment. This isn't,
Mhm.
this event happened and,
Mhm.
I'm reacting to it. But when it becomes overwhelming and it's limiting your ability to function, it's,
Mhm.
taking you away from being able to do the things that you need to do daily, paying your bills, going to work, taking care of your hygiene, or taking care of your
Yes.
family if you're a parent. That's when you know that, I'm not just sad. I may be dealing with depression or a
Yes.
depression disorder, and I need to get support and help. Um, but yeah, and that's
Okay.
something common. I'm glad that you brought up depression as it relates to
Yes.
anxiety, because there are a lot of similarities in symptoms.
Okay.
Fatigue, over worrying and feeling exhausted, changes in appetite, changes in sleep, um,
Mhm.
wanting to be more isolated than being as social. For
Yes.
anxiety, it shows up differently in the space of, it's because I might be worried about an impending doom or, a stressful situation versus depression. It may be in that space of, um, I just don't have the motivation to do these
Yes.
things the same way that I used to.
Yes. And that is a serious thing. I think a lot of people should be really mindful of
Mhm,
and understanding. And before I get into some, if there are considered common causes of, I want to now stick with anxiety and
mhm.
depression, if or anxiety mainly. Tell me what you feel like some of the common causes of anxiety or depression. You can go either one interchangeably if you want to. We can stick with anxiety.
Mhm.
Are there some common causes of it?
Sure, sure. And especially kind of depending on what you might be anxious about. And so,
Yeah.
we call those things triggers. When you think about
Yes.
common causes of anxiety, what is the triggering situation? There might
Hmm.
have been something that you experienced in your childhood
Yeah.
that may be now showing up for you as an adult that you didn't even notice before. It
Yeah.
could have been an event that happened as a child where, um, perhaps maybe at school, where um, an event happened where maybe you were picked on or teased about something, and now, you
Hmm.
know, um, as an adult, now I strive to be a perfectionist, or, you
Yes.
know, um, there might have been something that happened in childhood where you were trying to get the attention of your parents because of what
Hmm.
happened was going in your family. And so now it's showing up for me as an adult where I'm an overthinker, or I'm always trying to people please. And so that interrupts my ability to have healthy boundaries because as a
Yes.
child, I didn't have the attention. And so it's showing up for me
Hmm.
now. And then other different stresses and traumas, thinking about like people who have gone through, I think about victims from Hurricane Katrina and other natural
Hmm.
disasters, people who have gone through traumatic events from car accidents, you know,
Hmm.
um, and or people who might have seen some type of violence played out in front of them, whether it was domestic violence, growing up in a household
Hmm.
where I saw this, or I experienced emotional abuse as a young person, or in my earlier relationships, perhaps I
Hmm.
experienced a different form of abuse, verbal abuse or sexual abuse as a
Yes.
child. So you think about different traumatic experiences that we have
Mm-hmm.
too, and it might not show up for us right then in terms of our response it may not show
Yes.
up for us then, but then down the
Mm-hmm.
line, it might be something that is triggering as an adult. And it's like, oh, this is why I'm nervous about driving because of that car
Mm-hmm.
accident that, I had
Yes,
many, many, many
exactly.
years ago, or this
Yeah.
is why, I'm afraid to go, out, in this area because of this that happened. I got laughed at when I did the talent show. So now I'm afraid of public speaking, so just those are just
Mm-hmm.
some examples of
Good
triggers.
examples, though.
Yeah, these are
Yeah.
just examples of like common triggers. And then you
Mm-hmm.
also have to keep in mind too, some people are predispositioned to have anxiety because of a chemical
Mm-hmm.
imbalance. And so
Okay.
for some of us, we may not have the faculties to cope and manage stress as well as other
Mm-hmm.
people. And so that
Mm-hmm.
may not have been built in us over
Yeah.
time. And so where you might be able to handle a life transition or
Mm-hmm.
you may be able to adjust to change. Someone else
Right.
who did not build that resilience and have the faculties mentally to be able to handle that. Whenever
Yeah.
change and adjustment and transitions happen, it can create
Mm-hmm.
additional anxiety. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's one, and I know we haven't talked about treatment for anxiety, but that's one of the reasons why
Yeah.
utilizing coping skills and teaching coping skills is so effective when it comes to an anxiety disorder because you may not have had that, but it is something that can be taught. Um,
Exactly. And before we get into
mhm,
that coping
mhm,
part, because that is one of my questions.
mhm,
So, but let me ask you this before we get into that, because you said so much good information. I promise you that I'm learning, and understanding even better than the little research I try to do normally. Um, like you said, the triggers.
mhm,
Is there something that was ever? Is there something that makes us suppress? I know, well, I've heard with some traumas and everything that we will naturally suppress some of it to try to forget about it, I guess, for some. And but is there something that makes us suppress certain things, like you say, maybe why if I got laughed at school from
mhm.
the talent competition, and now this is why I don't want to do public speaking. Is there something that makes us, even those things that seem simple to us,
Mhm.
just suppress it and not understanding it, and it just resurfaces?
Yeah,
Um,
the first thing when I think about it, I think about that survival brain,
okay.
and that is a part of our brain that's developed um,
Yeah.
first, and
First. Okay.
that needs to survive or thrive, survive and thrive. So
Survive it.
when you think
Yeah.
about that, a lot of situations that young people go through
Hmm.
they have yet to build the capacity to cope with, but because of that, and we call it the reptilian brain, because when you think
Uh-huh.
about the animal kingdom, that is it's survival of the fittest. So, I have
Uh-huh.
to make sure that I do what I need to do to survive. And so that's a part of the
Oh.
brain in us that is developed first. And for some children, if I've had these experiences happen to me so early in life, then I'm always in survival mode.
Yes.
I'm always in survival mode. I'm doing what I have to do to make sure
Yeah.
that I survive, to make sure, that my basic needs are met, to make sure that I'm able to sustain and keep going. And so I may not be developing coping mechanisms that are healthy, but I'm still
Hmm.
here, and I'm
Yes.
doing what I need to do to continue to survive. And then and so you know it and you've probably heard of defense mechanisms before. That's
Yes.
what's
Hmm.
supportive of that, having these mechanisms in place to where I'm able to continue to survive and thrive. Is it always healthy?
Hmm.
Absolutely not. And then
No.
sometimes we
Yeah.
have to suppress things, and our mind will do that to protect us. To
Right.
protect
Yes.
us. um, And
Hmm.
so you'll see and you'll hear, even when people start talking about previous traumas, some people are not able to even bring back to memory some of the things that they've gone through because their
Hmm.
brain has suppressed it, hidden it, out of sight, out of mind, for a protective factor,
So,
because you don't have the faculty to be able to handle this just yet. But
exactly.
as you begin to go through it and process, your trauma with a professional, they're able
Hmm.
to eventually pull and uncover some things up that are the root of what might be going on.
Exactly.
Yeah. But
And that's a
yeah,
good,
it's for
I'm sorry.
protection
That's
and surviving
it
and
for
thriving.
protection. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. And it's great. The brain is an amazing, I know too, as you've done in your practice and learn and know yourself, it's an amazing tool
Hmm.
to have. I mean, thankfully, because like you said, when it protects us, I'm sure when it needs to.
Hmm.
And and you the segue into, like you say, sometimes that's why you need everyone out there, those therapists and psychologists, psychiatrists, they're out there for
Hmm.
reasons. Everything can't be solved just in our little bubble sometimes, not for everyone. And it's okay. And it's okay because, again, like I said earlier, we may be talking to our sisters and our friends, and maybe not getting those. It's good to get it out if you are talking to someone, but it is great to go to someone who is trained to help bring some of those things that we're missing out of us, to help us get along and move past these things. I want to go into two things because I want to ask. I know we in our past have always, some people, I think, shun getting professional help, but going to therapy. Thankfully, it's changed a lot. I believe
Hmm.
tremendously from, I don't know how many years ago, everyone. I'm just going to use my own little statistics. 10, 15 years ago. I don't know. But thankfully, I've seen it change even in my circle of friends and businesses that I've dealt with. So I'm so happy to hear that.
Yes.
And what is it you think is before we still go into the coping, because everyone, we're going into the coping skills to help us move through some of these things. What is it you think where people still feel like, if someone is out there right now has some kind of like, I don't know if I want to talk to someone, how do we help them to understand the importance of doing that?
Oh, that's so good. And, I agree. It has shifted. Are we all the way
Hmm.
where we need to be? Nope, but it has shifted, and that's so positive.
Yeah.
Just continuing to um, spread awareness. I think that the more people see that it is okay to get
Yes.
support, as well as taking
And
this,
it's
and
normal.
it's normal, and
Yes.
taking the stigma off of, getting help. I always simplify it for people who are struggling, with making that
Hmm.
choice. I say, if you had a bad cough, you wouldn't struggle, would you still, try to self-medicate? If you broke your leg, would you be trying to
Yes.
self-medicate? If you were diagnosed with diabetes, heaven forbid, would you be trying to
Hmm.
self-medicate? And everyone says no. I would go seek professional help for what's going on physically with me, to
Exactly.
make sure that I'm okay and I'm able to heal and recover. Well, the same thing is true about your mind. Your brain is a part of you. We don't just care for our physical, but we have to care for our
Hmm.
mental as well. And so if you recognize that there is something going on with me mentally, I'm having stress, I'm having anxiety, I'm constantly worrying, I've had this traumatic experience that's happened to me, or I'm dealing with life change and transition. It
Yes.
doesn't have to be, what a lot of people think you only go see a counselor, if
Hmm.
you have a diagnosable mental illness. Absolutely not.
Hmm.
There,
Not
you go
exactly.
to counseling for any and everything, just to have a
Hmm.
space of non-judgment to talk to someone about what's
Exactly.
going on with you, whether, it's a mental disorder or if it's just
Hmm.
dealing with life. That's a supportive
Exactly.
person. Um, and so, yeah, the same way that we give care to our physical body and our physical needs, we have to
Hmm.
remember that we don't need to self-medicate for our mental needs as well. Um,
Exactly.
you have a
Exactly.
pediatrician for your kids. You have your
Hmm.
own primary care physician. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that you go to, have a counselor, that you go
Have a
to as well.
counselor as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. It's like it should be that standard. Uh, it would be great if that was a person that we look to add to our list of,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, our pediatrician for our children and our regular primary care physicians that we go through, and so many, many more that women, we have to go to see as well. So that is a great way of saying it, and it would be good if it could get to that place where everybody feels like, yeah, that's a normal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Why wouldn't I? And have someone just like you said, just to go through, have that conversation and talk to about life. You simply broke it down to everyone to understand. Again, like you said, if you have unfortunately diabetes or anything like that, you won't self-medicate or try to fix it yourself. If you may not know until, God forbid, with something like diabetes, but a broken leg at least, you won't self-medicate. So that is a great, great way of breaking it down. And even to the point of, like you said, I know it was I read where you said, and I'm finding where you truly want to validate,
Yeah.
you want everyone to be heard, validated, and supported. So why would you not want somebody in your corner like that, and someone who is trained as well? Because we can possibly have someone who's who wants to hear you, but really having that professional who really took the extra step to make sure that they and they're called to do it and enjoy helping someone else. You couldn't beat having that in your corner.
Right.
So but I enjoyed everything, the how you broke everything down. And when you mentioned earlier, because I had it written down about those who overthink, and because I was going to ask, is that a form of disorder, some type of disorder? Because I can tell you about Arlene. I love sometimes everyone out there using Arlene for an example. I overanalyze a lot of things in life, and I know I do that, and I'm working on that. And I I will say I'm getting better. You know, some people who know me better might say, yeah, you can use a little work in that, but I am doing that. And even when you give those simple reasons why some people may feel anxiety, I can go back even to me when I was laid off. I would say 3 times in 4 years. Arlene is a person who knows how to put some money to the side for rainy days. And I do that because of, thankfully, and when I tell you God has been so good to me,
Mm.
nothing, I always tell people, thank God nothing dropped. I just always tell people, I went in that, what is it? Survivor, that is flight. What is that one that
Fight,
flight?
flight, or freeze.
Fight. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
fight, flight, or freeze. I was fighting,
Yes.
and I freeze my accounts. Put it that way. So I, I freeze my own accounts.
Yes.
And the only thing I always tell people, Lexi was a little girl at the time. I didn't want her to feel like her life changed. So in what I did is I put a freeze on what Arlene wanted to do, put money to the side, making sure the home was taken care of, and the things I needed and transportation, and the things that she still wanted, that money went there. And thankfully, I had a great support system around me, and her dad and everyone else too, for her. And so that plays in my head still to this day,
Yeah.
even though the last layoff, thank God, has been 7 years ago, going on 8 now. That I'm a stickler of making sure. Okay, they always say we should have 6 months of reserve, of course, in our accounts, and it's still just making sure I have something there. I just need to feel protected, and I don't think I overthink it, but it's something to look at where some of those things can happen. So overthinking can be a form of disorder, of course, if you allow it.
And when you said, I'm glad that you gave that example of work,
Uh-huh.
and and what happened at work that created this event. So when you're thinking about one of those common triggers for anxiety, that triggered you, to where now
Mm-hmm.
you manage your life different. You said now, the way that I've come out of those experiences is my protective mode, my
Mm-hmm.
mechanism, my strategy for continue to survive and thrive is I make sure I always have
Yes.
something, stored up. Um,
Yes.
but it has also showed up in the form of overthinking. And so life
Yes.
events, stress at work, school, we think about kids in school, kids who have had
Yes.
to go to multiple schools, typically have higher levels of anxiety, because of
Mm-hmm.
or kids who have had to move and have had
Mm-hmm.
multiple homes typically have higher
Yes.
levels of anxiety. You think about kids of divorce or kids who have been
Yes.
homes where the home, the marriage was dissolved, and
Yes.
those who have been in relationships that have ended in divorce or that have ended with someone being widowed, financial stress,
Mm-hmm.
things that are going in the politics, like things that we can't control, like the pandemic,
Yes.
or the death of a loved one or medical illness. Like
Mm-hmm.
these are all common things that we go through. Like no one is exempt from these type of stresses,
Right. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and we all have our own form of strategy on how we manage it. Some people are able to
Yes.
adjust, more so than others, and
Exactly.
I think also kind of just being in a space of non-judgment too. You
Exactly.
may see that you've gone through something and you came out, unscathed, and your neighbor goes through that same thing and their life seems like it's falling apart. And so being able to show empathy as opposed to
Yes.
judgment is more helpful than you know.
Yes.
So being able to just extend that
Exactly.
empathy and grace to people that everybody
Mhm.
can't handle and manage things the same.
Same way. I so agree with that. And that shows up in everything in our lives, how we all handle everything differently
Mhm.
in our lives. And what works for one won't work for the other, because I've seen even people who, this person may have gotten a DUI and this person hasn't, and this person who has gotten stuck on certain drugs maybe, and this person. Let me tell you what I did when Lexi was a young girl. I don't know if a therapist is going to tell me this is bad, but this is what I did. When she was younger, I showed her certain shows. I told her she had to watch them with me. Like we watch um uh it was the one on drugs. When people, they're showing the people that are get strung out on drugs. I forget, intervention is a show. And I would always show her, I said, these young people didn't start out, they show you the cute little girl or boy that started out, and how cute and adorable they were, and happy, and but then as the show goes on, it tells they're on drugs, or they're abusing some form of narcotics or something. And I just wanted her to see that they didn't start out that way. People think they can control these things, but they end up controlling you if you're not careful. So people go in thinking, let me just use this one little thing, and think they can have control. So I always wanted her to understand that they can control you before, you probably think you can have control of it. And even stuff like that, it used to be a show called Beyond Scared Straight. I would show her that too. We got a kick out of that one. Not I got a kick. Lord forgive me. We watched that one, and for her to still see, how some people were, thinking they were, how they can get in trouble, trying to get them straight before, anything, and letting her understand the type of people she should hang around as well. It was part of the way I was trying to show her. So, it's a lot of that I tried to do to try to help out, but I don't know if it was a good thing or not, but
That's what we
thank
call
God.
prevention. So, when you think about after the fact is like intervention. What you were doing, you were
Yes.
just putting in some preventative strategies
Yeah, I was
to
trying.
help to avoid her getting to the space where she needed an intervention. So,
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's like, okay, pull back now. But
mhm,
thankfully, I think she got it for her. It wouldn't be for every one size don't fit all, of
mhm,
course. But let's move into then also a lot of the treatment, that
mhm.
people do experience, who may be experiencing anxiety, and the best therapy for that. Um, if
Sure.
you have a disorder.
Yeah. Um, Anxiety is treatable. Anxiety is treatable, and there's so many different things
Hmm.
that can be utilized. Some things that you didn't probably even notice. One of my favorites
Hmm.
is using deep breathing. Deep breathing skills are things that are helpful for anxiety because a lot of times when people are having a panic attack or
Hmm.
are feeling overly anxious, you
Hmm.
notice that your breathing speeds up, and breathing
Hmm.
speeding up also increases your heart rate, which also, might make you start to feel lightheaded, or maybe I
Hmm.
might start to sweat. So it's like a ripple effect for some
Yeah.
people.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to take a moment to pause and focus on your breathing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of different breathing techniques and strategies that can help to calm you down and
Mm-hmm.
slow you down to where now I feel like I can manage whatever is going on with me a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Something else, just a couple of things, coloring or doing some type of form of art and craft is a
Oh,
positive
good.
distraction. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you think about anxiety, how can I get to a space where I'm not focused on what's causing me to be overly
Mm-hmm.
anxious or what's causing me to feel overwhelmed or whatever I'm overthinking, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm now putting that energy into focusing on, let me not color outside these lines, and coloring is therapeutic.
Mm.
Arts and crafts as well, because it requires my attention, and
Yes.
my concentration. And a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times anxiety robs us of that. So
Yes.
you'll hear people who talk about being anxious, that I can't concentrate, I can't focus, I can't sit down, my mind feels scattered. You'll hear that
Mm-hmm.
term scatterbrained,
Heard that
where
before.
I can't focus on one thing. And so being able to do something that requires that attention, like
Mm-hmm.
coloring, like an arts and a craft, that helps with being able to calm you down.
Okay.
Meditation, meditation, and not just the type, some people can just sit and listen to like a meditative track. Some
Mm-hmm.
people can just sit quietly with no music at all and meditate. And other people, prefer to do yoga,
Mm-hmm.
yoga or some type of meditation in that space that helps them to get to that place of calm and relaxation. It helps to ground you and make
Mm-hmm.
you feel more in control of your body, as opposed, and it teaches you mindfulness, so
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to my mind is thinking about so many different things,
Mm-hmm.
I to just be grounded and present and
Yes.
focused only on this one thing. You said something earlier, two things earlier that I wanted to point out that are
Mm-hmm.
forms of coping. You said sometimes I just unplug,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to take a break from social media. I've heard
Mm-hmm.
social media called the doom scroll, because sometimes
I believe
when
it.
you're scrolling, it's just doom, destruction, disaster, and
It's
it
called
gets to
doing
be
what? What is that again?
the doom scroll.
The doom scroll. Okay.
I've
Uh-huh.
heard, yes, it refers to doom scroll because it can be overwhelming when
Yes.
you hear it on the radio or you see it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok, and then you turn on the TV and the news
Mm-hmm.
is giving you something else, and you get a text message. So, being
Yes.
able to find time to unplug
Okay.
from
Mm.
media, and really focusing on what am I allowing to enter into my world right now. Like, I
Mm-hmm.
want to make sure that I am allowing positive vibes to enter into. So if that means I'm not watching the news today and
Mm-hmm.
I'm choosing to watch a comedy instead, or if that means I'm not picking up my phone and getting on social media today and I'm choosing to read a book instead,
Mm-hmm.
or I'm choosing to listen to music instead, you know, um, that's a healthier form of coping, is by unplugging. And you also mentioned something called positive self-talk. And so when you said that I'll talk to myself and I'll be like, okay, you'll talk yourself through things.
Uh-huh.
If I'm overthinking, I'll try to rationalize.
Mm-hmm.
Positive self-talk, that's a form of coping too,
Yes.
using affirmations and talking yourself through challenging situations, reflecting on, hey, I've been through hard things before, then doggone it, I can get through
Get through
this. I
this.
can get through this too. And so, having that positive self dialogue,
Mm-hmm.
because anxiety can do the opposite, can
Yes.
create those negative thoughts, those
Mm-hmm.
thoughts of doubt, those thoughts that make you be more fearful, those things that are more anxious, anxiety provoking, like
Mm-hmm.
irrational thoughts. So let me um, let me shift and change the language myself. And
Mm-hmm.
then you think about just everyday, like healthy diet, exercise. Let me make sure I'm getting enough sleep. Those are forms of coping too. If I'm overly fatigued, that
Mm-hmm.
can't be helpful for my mental health. If I'm not
Exactly.
putting in healthy food and water into my body, that's not going to be helpful. You think about like caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant. It's going to make me even more jittery, even
Hmm.
more, on the edge. And if I'm already dealing with anxiety, that's not going to
Exactly.
help.
That's not going to help.
That's not going to help.
Yeah,
And exercise too, as well.
exactly. Those are great, great coping skills for all of us to take. And I'm glad I got at least one or two out of them. Because everyone, again, we're all a work in progress a lot of times.
Mhm,
I need to work on that deep breathing and that meditation.
mhm,
Those
mhm,
are some that I'm more intentional about trying to do, because
mhm.
I'm trying to slow my mind down a lot more now these days, and slow it down in a positive way to where I'm in my faith, I want to hear God more. And instead, a lot of times my mind is just racing with thoughts
Yeah.
and things to do and what's going on. And again, that doom scroll has something. I
Mhm.
have so been good at kind of pulling back. I need to probably, as I try to do more, because I want to put so much more out there so I can, get this podcast out to more women. I'm on there because of that. I promise you first. And just, connect with family who I love, and see what's going on, because I love to see the beautiful things that people are doing and going on, of course, but you have to pull it back, like you said. So yeah, so I'm working on a lot of that deep breathing, especially in that meditation. And I love the do the arts and crafts, and I've been hearing, I spoke to someone else, she's a grief advocate, and she was talking about the different things, the yoga, and of course the deep breathing, like you said, the meditation. All of it goes back, because it goes back to, like you said, being grounded,
Mhm.
and it's like getting the body back aligned to its natural state of, being in healthy and present.
Yeah.
Those are some key things that we would have to do, is be present and grounded. And if we could try to just be intentional about getting to that place, maybe some of us would probably consider more and saying, okay, let me get someone who probably can help me get to some of those places. Because a lot of what you said, because sometimes somebody might overthink, I need to do every last one of these. It's just find the ones that work for you, that's going to make you healthy enough to get grounded, right?
Right. And like you said, it's not a one size fits all, you know?
Exactly.
And so what works for one may not work for the other. I have my coping skills toolbox, and those are
Yes.
the things that I access. But my toolbox is going to look different from yours,
Mine. Thank you.
And so I do encourage practicing new skills and then
Yes.
seeing if this is helpful or not, and if it's not, don't judge yourself. Don't be too self-critical. It's like I tried it. Now let me try something different. Maybe it wasn't meditation for me, but when I got on, that trail and I took that walk, it really gave me a chance to clear my mind and bring myself down. So, I encourage trying new things,
I
and
agree with that.
then you
Mhm.
you want to make sure that you know what does work. You want to make
Exactly.
sure that what does
What I love about what you just said, and I know I'm going to sake of time, as I can see Chanel and I can talk all day, because she already told me she can talk about this all day, everyone. um, I love what you said, where, of course, you want other people to practice new things, because it's just like our children, right? We want to teach our children. You kind of want to get our kids into certain activities or something, and then they're, after they get their own mind, they're like, I don't want to do that. But it's like, no, once if you try, you never know, you might like it. But like, so I like the fact what you said, one size don't fit all. So for sake of time, to tell me, as a parent, if we have kids going through, if you had given us what you felt, because that's a lot that you've given us, to show us what some things that probably, if we came to you, that you would help us with. So um tell us, what should some parents look for in our children, if we might have noticed some things that could be, you know, not, I don't want to say we say is correct, but I don't know, I don't want to say it in a way that's not right. But what should a parent look out for their kids, to say if I need to consider getting them to talk to someone?
Yeah. Um, a lot of the things that you would see in adults mirror in kids.
Yeah.
So, I would say still look out for a child who's isolating more,
Hmm.
or a child who is having challenges with completing tasks or
Mm-hmm.
saying that they can't concentrate or focus, or if you've noticed that, they may not want to do some of the things that they used to like to do.
Mm-hmm.
Those things I would say are still the same as it relates to parent or adults and kids.
Mm-hmm.
Other things to look out for kids too is changes in sleep, changes in appetite, grades that have gone,
Mm-hmm.
in a different way. So if you typically have a student who performs well and now you've seen that their
Mm-hmm.
grades have shifted, um, that's something to take note of.
Yes.
Also thinking about even hygiene practices, that's
Yes.
something to take note of. If you've
Mm-hmm.
got a child who's typically, able to take care of their hygiene without any additional support, and now you're
Mm-hmm.
noticing they don't put as much care into it, that's something just to follow up in and see,
Yes.
is everything okay? And it's okay to ask that question. And I always say, err on the side of safety. If your
Mm-hmm.
child, if you see that your kid is starting to become more withdrawn and things just aren't adding up for you, ask
Mm-hmm.
that question and be open. Let your child know that I am a safe space for you to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And September is Suicide Prevention Month,
Mm-hmm.
National Suicide Prevention Month. And I always encourage parents to, sometimes people say, oh, my kid was doing this, but I think it's attention seeking. Well, if they're saying that they want to hurt themselves, or you're seeing that they're trying to hurt themselves, or they say things like, I wish I could just, go to sleep and not be here,
Mm-hmm.
they may not come out and say, I wish to be dead, but you're starting to see those kind of signs. You
Yes.
always take those seriously. I've heard so many parents say, oh, they're just doing that, seeking attention. If
Yes.
that's the case, then give them the attention that they need and get them that support and help.
Mhm.
You always want to err on the side of safety as it relates to those type of things.
I
So
love that.
yeah,
I love that. Again, like you said, if like if they say they're seeking attention, give them that attention.
give it to them.
Oh, that's important. And again, everyone, we can talk about. I know this is a subject that we can talk about. I got a few more questions I could ask. I'm just going to ask one more, and then I want to jump into the goal setting because I know we never did talk about that, and I want to let you touch on that yourself. But in something like anxiety or the mental, well, all of it, in your practice, what is a normal session like? Is it a 8 week, 10 week normally? I know you, everyone, we definitely going to put a information to her website out there, and you can contact her for more information. But I'm just going to ask, is it a normal thing where you do a 8 week, 10 week session, or it can vary depending on your client?
It most definitely varies. That first initial session, though,
Mhm.
is when we do a assessment,
Yeah.
and that's really just an information gathering session. And it's good for two things. It's good for me to be able to fill you out as a potential new client and to get all the information that I need to know that I can best support you. But it's
Yes.
also good for you sitting on the other side of the couch to know
Yes.
who I am and am I going to be the right person for you, a good fit. And
Yes.
so that's what that first session looks like. And then from there, we establish goals for your therapy. What is it that you want to work on, and how are we going to work on that? And then in terms of like the course of treatment, it's totally up to the client. I have
Yes.
some individuals who are with me long term, and then I have others who just come and they need a couple of sessions, and they are like, you know what, I feel good, and I'll reach out to you if I need, additional support.
Mhm.
And that just speaks to the volume of the validity, excuse me,
Mhm.
of how you therapy doesn't have to be intense.
Mhm.
Therapy doesn't have to be intense. I can come and check in with a
Yeah.
counselor 2, 3 times a year and
Exactly.
have what I need to maintain throughout. It's not where I always have to go every week. You know,
Exactly. That's
that's more
great.
intense. That's more intense. And there are individuals who need that. That's not
That's
every.
great.
Mhm.
That's a great thing. So as we move in, just everyone, before we try to end this podcast, I wanted to talk to her about goal setting. That's something she's working on. So I'm going to just have her talk about what she has going on with goal setting and in her practice and everything going on in regards to that, and what you have coming up, if anything,
Mhm.
in the future, or even if it's after the podcast airs.
Absolutely. Thank you. I like to start the year off, looking at goals, and not just any type of goals, but smart goals,
Mhm.
and so
Yes.
um, I don't believe in making New Year's resolutions. I believe in creating plans that are smart, meaning, that what you're working towards is a specific
Mhm.
thing. It's not just um, overall goal, but it's specific what you want to work towards. There's a measurement in place so that you can track your progress, and know that it's attainable. The R stands for relevant. Why is that goal relevant? Why is it important for you to
Mhm.
achieve it? And is it realistic with the time that you're giving your to
Mhm.
achieve it? And that's what the T stands for. And so I believe in making SMART goals, not just
Yeah.
for adults, but for kids. And so I have
Exactly.
a workshop that's coming up, that's a SMART goal setting workshop for
Mhm.
kids. And that's going to be on next Saturday, the 29th.
Mhm.
I'm doing a session for teens at 10 o'clock and a session
Mhm.
for kids under 12 years old at 12 o'clock. And this is to teach kids how to
Exactly.
start their year off right by creating SMART goals for themselves. I try to do a workshop each quarter.
Mhm.
Last year, 2020, I did a 6-week group that focused on grief.
Uh-huh.
And that's
Good.
something that more than likely I will do again this year because there is still a lot of individuals that are going through grief. All
Yeah.
of my workshops are offered virtually, um,
Mhm.
so that those who cannot come in person have the ability to still be
Mhm.
able to attend. And so I'll be sure to share that info with you when
Please.
those dates come. And
Mhm.
in May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so May is also one of the months where I typically plan a workshop just to bring additional awareness to mental health, and access to care. And so I'll be sure to share those dates with you in the future too.
So your workshop on the SMART goals, is that done quarterly as well, or is that only like
That one
is
I
something a start
that one I typically just do at the top of the year.
top of the year? Okay, that's top of the year. The grief, the one for grief is definitely you saying trying to do it several times a year.
Mhm. Yes.
Okay.
Last year, I believe it started in July. Yeah, I
Yeah.
started out in around
Okay.
July, and then I had a workshop for grief around the holidays because,
Around the time.
that's another
Yeah.
time when grief is really acute for some people. Holidays are not a
Yes.
happy time. And so addressing grief as it relates around the holidays too is something that I like to do.
That is a good way, a good time to do it. Okay, and I will put that information. The show, her upcoming Smart Goal uh, workshop is probably going to be this will air afterwards, but I will share it so you can reach out to her as she plans going forward, and maybe see if she would consider it. And I love that you're doing it with kids, young people, and helping them, because what better way to start us being better planners and being smart about our goals is at a young age when the brain can take it faster than some of our brains now. Because I'll tell you again, I'm gonna use Arlene for example. I I am a person who will write my stuff down and then I'll have 5 notebooks. And I need to just put everything in order. And I've written down my goals and everything. They may look like disorganization to someone like you and somebody else, but it's my mass chaos. I used to always have people, I was like, this desk is mad, it's chaos, but I know where everything is and it
Yeah.
works. I don't suggest that for anybody else out there. Trust me, I probably need to go sit down with Chanel and talk about bringing that under in order. I promise you. So so tell us, Chanel, tell us how, if there's anything else I may have missed that you think is very important to share today, um, that you would like to share with the audience, and then how we can connect with you on social media and your business again.
Sure, sure. If there was one lasting thing, as it relates to this discussion is
Mhm.
that your mental health matters. It's important. There are resources that are available. Access to care is more available than what you may think. And
Mhm.
um, just understanding that you're the only one that can take care of you. And so, other people, we can't leave it up to other people to do it. We're the only ones who can take care of ourselves. And so, when we think about how we are in relation to other people, and
Mhm.
boundaries is one of those coping skills too. You know, when you
Right.
think about how I am able to extend care to others, I'm always, available to others, or I'm taking care of the needs of others, or I'm doing this, that, or the other.
Mhm.
If I'm always pouring out and giving, but I'm not doing what I need to refill and refuel and pour back into myself, then I'm no good to anybody. So just making
Exactly.
sure that you value your mental health, you don't overextend yourself in spaces where you don't need to, and practice self-care. Self-care is one of
Yeah.
those preventative measures for dealing with anxiety and depression too. Let me make sure I have a healthy practice of self-care built into my everyday routine.
Exactly. Exactly. How can we connect with you?
I am on Instagram, and my handle
Mhm.
is at CT underscore counseling center. I'm on Facebook, and that is backslash CT Counseling Center, Twitter at CT Counseling. And then I have a YouTube channel. In my YouTube channel, I try to upload different videos that teach these same skills that we talked about today. So I encourage
Wonderful.
everyone to go visit Creative Touch Counseling Center YouTube channel, and you'll
Mhm.
see videos not just for adults, but videos for kids too. The person who
Yes.
does my kid videos, the voiceover is my daughter. She's 8, and she breaks things down so that it's easily understandable for kids. And so
Ah,
go to Creative Touch Counseling Center YouTube channels, like the page, subscribe to it, and I know that you'll be blessed. Also, my website is www.creativetouchcounseling.com. And every month I upload resources on my website as well. And so you can visit my website, and there's a link that says resources, and you can see different resources that you can save down, practice, download, and implement into your day to day.
wonderful. And everyone, again, all of this information will be how to connect with Chanel and will be in the show notes. I have to go back to say, oh, your beautiful little girl is the voice over for the videos. I love it, everyone. I don't know everyone I bring onto the show because I reach out to a lot of people, thankfully, that I'm connecting with today. I know of Chanel Toson and her beautiful family. Such a beautiful family, and I love the fact that is she enjoying it? She loves doing it.
She loves it, and every time she finishes, I'm so proud. I'm so proud. I'm like, girl, you did that. So
Sure.
she does so well with it.
Voiceovers. I love that. And your little son probably he'll be coming up eventually.
He's getting
May
there.
not be his thing. It may be he see his bigger sister, so he may choose to do it one day.
He's getting there. He'll get there.
I love it. I love it. It's again such a beautiful family. Chanel, I can't thank you enough for coming in and pouring into us. Your everything that you work towards. You can tell the heart you have for it. You can tell that you're called to do this and more. I can't say everything you're called to do, but I know this is something I can tell that matters to you. And especially like you said, from since being in school, and I love the fact that it started out that way. And I just want to say the one thing you said, and I'm gonna go ahead. I like to end the show. You end you end on a good note, and I want to reiterate that plus some of the things I read from your bio. But if you said if your quality of life isn't, well, I'm going to say if your quality of life is impacted, consider reaching out to Chanel at Creative Touch Counseling Center. You as you were here, she's has the knowledge to help move all of us further along in our journey to being healed and free. You won't go wrong by me connecting with her and the team that she has. Something I read, she wrote, she said, you too will leave feeling empowered and equipped to address your challenges because you will be heard again, like I said earlier. She said, you'll be validated and supported in each session. Creative Touch Counseling Center was created to engage, enrich, and empower its clientele to reach their full potential in life. Chanel said, I would be happy to walk on this journey with you, to be in your corner, cheering you on to receive tangible skills and useful directives that you can utilize in your everyday life living. Again, she said, you're the only one who can take care of yourselves, and you have to do practice self care. Everyone, again, thank you for joining us. Chanel, I can't thank you again enough for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And everyone out there, if you need her, contact her. Until next time, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for hanging with us. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and other platforms so you can stay up on our bi-weekly real conversations with these bold women. You can follow the Path Podcast on Facebook at the Path Podcast and on Instagram and Twitter at the Path_podcast. And if you would like to be a guest on the show or have questions for a future show, you can email us at thepath4ward@gmail.com. That's thepathforward@gmail.com. And if you're looking for a speaker or you're in need of a life coach, please reach out to me. Again, at thepathforward@gmail.com or at ACKORLEH@gmail.com. Thank you. Until next time.